Okay, the chat box is open in case anyone's got any questions. Please pop them in there. Don't worry about if you don't want to have your cameras on, that's fine. If you don't want to shout out, that's fine as well. Please just use the chat box. I'll stay behind at the end. If anyone's got any questions about exams, CII, the content, anything, please stay behind and we can talk through it. But we will get started with IF2. So IF2, I feel like it's a little bit different than IF1. There's a lot of lists in this book, and I always tell people to look out for lists because they're really easy to make questions out of, where you've got a list of different points. So there is a lot to remember. And our other webinar, Increasing Your Memory and Motivation, could be another really good webinar for you to review, because it just gives you some tips and tricks on how to remember lists, because this is a question I get asked all the time, especially with IF2. How am I going to remember all of this? So there's some tips and tricks in there. Well, we're going to get started obviously with chapter 1 and with private motor insurance. So for this section, there's 4 levels of cover available for private motor. You've got Road Traffic Act only, third party fire and theft, and comprehensive cover. So RTA cover is the minimum level of cover that's required. And then your third party only cover is in addition to that RTA cover, because it also includes some property damage, passenger indemnity and legal costs. The next level, that third party fire and theft, again, in addition, it covers for repair or compensation if the vehicle's stolen or damaged, also covers for fire, lightning and explosion as well. And then finally, we've got that comprehensive cover, and this is the highest level, an all risks basis. We're going to look at that term all risks in a little bit. So comprehensive cover, everything's insured apart from specific exclusions. And the specific exclusions, I've listed those at the bottom there in orange. So this is something really useful to take away and to revise what the exclusions are for that cover, because you might see those come up in an exam perhaps. Okay. Now with the motorcycle cover, we have the same levels of cover available for motorbikes, but there's just these following adjustments. So you're not covered for your accessories or spare parts unless the bike's stolen as well. This cover is for the insured and others permitted to drive the bike or ride the bike. And there's usually no personal accident cover or medical expenses, because obviously it's a bit of a higher risk. There's some extensions available, which I've listed below there in orange. So cover for riding other bikes, having more than one bike insured under a policy, for example. Now, this is a question that I see coming up quite a lot about that first point, no cover for theft of accessories or spare parts. So I've seen questions that gets repeated quite a lot. If your motorbike's stolen, can you put a claim in for your accessories? So just note that that is an adjustment. So that's worth knowing. Now for commercial vehicle, these vehicles that are used for business purposes, and the range of cover is the same as private motor, and there's typically like a standard wording that they use across the market for these types of policies. So commercial motor policies can also cover in respect of liability, any loading or unloading. So if any accidents occur while they're putting things in or taking them off the vehicle. Indemnity to driver, so cover for anyone who drives the vehicle with the permission of the insured. We've got indemnity to user, so the insured can allow someone to use the vehicle for social domestic purposes, even if they aren't driving. Indemnity to passengers, so this is liability for your passengers if they're negligent. And then finally we've got legal expenses, so just like private motor, commercial motor covers for certain legal costs. Now, I've put at the top there, you can see I've put like an acronym, and this is a really good way to try and remember lists. If you can put them into some sort of acronym or use some sort of wordplay, you can try and remember. So the different types, the 4 types of commercial vehicles we can remember as GAPs. So the G is the goods carrying vehicles, A is agricultural and forestry, P is the passenger carrying, and S is special construction. So if you can try and make words up with the first letter of a list of things, then it's a really good way to try and remember information. So chapter 2 looks at health insurance, and we can break this down into 3 main parts. So we've got firstly that personal accident, and this is where we're providing a lump sum payment in respect of certain events, such as permanent, partial or total disablement, loss of sight in one or both eyes, or death. And then we've got sickness. So this type of cover, sickness cover, is usually an extension to that personal accident policy. And you're going to get like a weekly benefit for people if they can't sort of perform any part of their normal job. It's worth noting as well here, personal accident and sickness, they're not policies of indemnity. So you might remember that from your IF1, because we can't put the person back in the same position they were before they suffered the loss. You know, if you chop your finger off, we can't give you your finger back, but we can certainly give you some sort of compensation for it. Under the personal accident and sickness policies, there are some standard exclusions. So things like, you know, if you're under the influence of alcohol, any self-inflicted injuries, accidents while you're doing dangerous activities, childbirth, pregnancy, things like that. And also anything that happens within 21 days of the policy being put on cover. So there's like a bit of a buffer. So you have to wait the 21 days. And then finally, we've got medical expenses. So this is for cover for any private medical treatment outside of the NHS. So things like theatre fees, aftercare costs, hospital charges, if you've got costs for a surgeon that you're wanting to use, or specialist fees. And also for any additional costs like for private ambulances. So those personal accident policies, so bear in mind the age limitations on those. Again, it's another really easy question to ask because we can put in multiple answers for that. So personal accident policies cover people between 16 and 70, and sickness is between 16 and 60. So we see that coming up a lot. Check the most recent book, because sometimes it can change, so just make sure that you're aware of the age brackets for those 2 types of policies. So that's something to note down, to go away and check. Okay, so packaged policies. So packaged policies are where we've got customers that need the same variety of different types of cover. And the insurer is going to put all of these elements of cover into a package under one policy. And this just saves the policyholder having to have lots of different types of insurances. So I like to think of it like a box with a bow around it. It's all in one. You can just take it off the shelf and give it to the customer, and it's got everything in it that they need. The book focuses on package policies for household, travel, and commercial package. Okay. So a standard commercial package policy is going to cover for fire and additional perils, so business interruption, theft, money, glass, assault, goods in transit, employers liability, public liability, products liability. So you can see there all of those different elements of cover. It would be such a pain in the bum to have to go away and try and get all of those types of cover on separate policies. So it's nice that it just all comes in one place, in one policy. There's also optional things that the insured can include as well. So things like refrigerated stock. If you might have a shop, you've got fridges. and a business all risks cover, which that gives you extra protection in addition to theft. And you've also got the legal expenses as well. With UK GDPR, because those rules have come in, the businesses may also want to protect their data now as well. I think we saw like a data breach, is it WH Smith this week? So companies are more and more wanting to cover this as well. So cover their cyber liability, any data breach expenses, and any computer system damage or cyber crime. So this can sort of cover a business for any extra costs or loss of income that's associated with a hack to their computer systems.